The men gathered in the dusty clearing fell into a tense hush as two burly ranch hands hauled a slender figure onto the rickety platform. A rough burlap sack hid her face, the coarse fabric brushing against her tangled hair as she stumbled forward. The air shimmered with heat in the Arizona territory of 1878, a wind swirling dust around her worn boots. Her faded calico dress hung in tatters, bearing the stains of hardship and miles traveled. From the shadows at the back of the crowd, Samuel Reed's jaw tightened. His fingers brushed the grip of his Colt revolver, a reflex born from years of living where justice was as scarce as rain. God help her, he thought grimly, bile rising in his throat. "Step right up, gentlemen. Fresh off the wagon train from back east." The auctioneer's voice cracked like a whip across the square, full of false cheer and greed. Sweat ran down his ruddy face, glistening under the pitiless afternoon sun. Young, strong, untouched, the kind of help every man needs out here. A wave of crude laughter rippled through the miners and cowboys, their eyes glinting with something darker than amusement. Sam's stomach churned. These bride sales had become an ugly stain on Silver Creek, the lawless boom town where the sheriff conveniently disappeared whenever such vile business occurred. "Let's start the bidding at $20. The auctioneer jerked the rope binding the girl's wrists, yanking her forward like livestock. "20, a voice called. "25, another barked. Sam's gaze fixed on the trembling figure, still and silent beneath the sackcloth, while the price of her freedom climbed higher. 50, 75. The men grew restless, voices sharp with hunger. 100. The words came like a growl, and Sam knew that voice. Jeb Wallace, owner of the biggest silver mine in the territory and the cruelest bastard this side of the divide. Wallace had a reputation for breaking both men and women, and those poor girls he kept never lasted long. The auctioneer grinned, flashing tobacco-stained teeth. 100. Do I hear more? 200. Sam's voice cut through the noise like a rifle crack. Heads turned. The crowd parted just enough for men to see the stranger in the worn trail coat standing like a thundercloud. Wallace's face darkened. 250, he spat. Sam didn't flinch. He stepped forward, boots crunching on the dry earth. 500. His voice was iron. Gasps rippled through the crowd. $500, a fortune in these parts. Wallace's jaw worked furiously, but even he knew when he'd been beaten. The auctioneer could barely contain his glee. Sold, to the gentleman in the back. Sam counted out the bills from the leather pouch he'd spent years filling for his ranch dreams. Acres could wait. Some things were worth more than land. When the girl's bonds were cut, Sam took her gently by the wrists. "Come on, miss," he said softly. "You're safe now." She didn't resist, though her steps faltered as they moved past the staring men toward his waiting horse. Only when they'd left the crowd behind did Sam stop. "I'm going to take that sack off your head, all right? I won't hurt you." When she gave no answer, he lifted the burlap away. The breath caught in his throat. Copper hair tumbled free in waves, framing a face so delicate it didn't belong to this harsh land. But it was her eyes that struck him, clear green, fierce despite the fear. "An angel," he murmured before he could stop himself. She blinked, wary. "Are you going to hurt me?" Her voice was soft but steady, touched by an eastern lilt. Sam shook his head. "No, ma'am. I bought your freedom. You can go wherever you please." When he drew his knife, she flinched. "Just the ropes," he explained, slicing the bindings with care. "I have nowhere to go," she whispered, rubbing her raw wrists. "What's your name?" "Hannah," she said after a pause. "Hannah Morgan." "Samuel Reed," he replied, tipping his hat awkwardly. "Sam." He cleared his throat. "I've got a small ranch an hour from here. You can stay until you figure out what's next. I'll sleep in the barn." Her green eyes searched his face. "Why did you help me, Mr. Reed?" "Because what they were doing was wrong," he said simply. "No one should be sold like cattle." A faint smile touched her lips. There aren't many men who'd pay $500 for a principal. "It's just money," Sam muttered. "Can always make more." Behind them, voices rose in anger. Sam turned to see Wallace storming toward them with two hard-eyed men in tow. "Reed!" Wallace roared. "I ain't finished bidding." Sam stepped in front of Hannah, hand near his revolver. "The auction's over. She's not for sale." Wallace sneered, fingers twitching near his pistol. "Everything's for sale in Silver Creek." "Not today," Sam said coolly. "Unless you want the marshal asking why you're interfering in a legal deal." Wallace's eyes narrowed. He wasn't afraid of the law, but even he knew murder in broad daylight was bad for business. Spitting in the dust, he snarled, "This ain't over, Reed." "Noted," Sam replied. Inside, his gut tightened. He'd just made a powerful enemy. He helped Hannah into the saddle and swung up behind her, one arm steadying her as they rode toward the horizon. At first, she sat rigid, but as Silver Creek faded into the distance, her body eased slightly. "Thank you," she murmured after a long silence. "You're welcome, Miss Morgan." "Hannah," she corrected softly. "Hannah," he repeated, the name settling on his tongue like a promise. The rest of the ride was quiet, broken only by hoofbeats and the whispers of wind. When at last the sun bled into crimson and gold across the desert, Sam spoke. "My place ain't much. Just a small house and some pasture, but you'll be safe there." Her voice trembled with exhaustion. "It sounds wonderful." When they reached the modest ranch, a single-story house, a sturdy barn, and a corral of fine horses, Sam felt a flicker of pride. "Welcome to the Double R," he said. Hannah stared at the homestead as if it were a miracle. After what she'd endured, maybe it was. Inside, Sam insisted she take the main bedroom. She protested, but he stood firm. She needed a proper bed, and he'd make do by the fire. While she washed and changed into a calico dress from his sister-in-law's old trunk, Sam fixed a meal of beans, bacon, and day-old cornbread. They ate quietly, Hannah too weary for conversation, Sam too aware of the angel sitting at his table. Later she thanked him again before retreating to bed, leaving him staring into the flames, wondering how a single day could change everything. Sleep eluded him. Tomorrow he'd send a telegram to her aunt in San Francisco. Tomorrow they'd talk about what came next. But as the coyote's cry echoed through the dark, Sam knew one thing for certain. Life would never be the same. Hannah brushed a strand of copper hair behind her ear as she spoke. "I attended the Boston Female Academy until I turned 18. Sam gave a low whistle. "That explains why you don't quite fit the mold of most women out here." "Different doesn't always mean better," she replied softly, her gaze sweeping across the endless expanse of open land beyond the corral. "All that schooling feels useless in a place like this." "Don't sell yourself short," Sam said, pushing away from the fence. "Brains come in handy no matter where you are." He adjusted the brim of his hat. "I need to ride into Silver Creek for some supplies, and to send that telegram to your aunt. Will you manage all right on your own for a few hours?" "I'll be fine," she said, though the idea of being alone in this wild country sent a flicker of unease through her. "There's a shotgun right by the door if you need it," Sam told her seriously. "And Hank should be back by noon. He lives in the little cabin past the barn." "I didn't realize you had help," Hannah said. "Just Hank. He's older now, but he knows more about horses than most men forget in a lifetime. Been visiting his sister since her husband busted his leg in a mine accident." Sam gathered the reins. "I won't be gone long. Make yourself at home." After his departure, the house felt strangely silent. Hannah wandered through the rooms, noticing how plain everything seemed. It was tidy, but the absence of any feminine touch made the space feel lonely. Acting on instinct, she rolled up her sleeves and set to work. She swept the floor, washed the dishes from breakfast, and straightened the furniture. In the pantry, she found just enough to make a hearty stew and put it on the back burner to simmer. By midday, the small home smelled of savory broth and fresh wildflowers she'd gathered and placed in a jar on the table. She was so absorbed in her tasks that the knock on the door startled her. "Hello," a rough but friendly voice called. "Anybody home?" Remembering Sam's warning, Hannah hesitated before opening the door. A grizzled cowboy with silver hair and sun-worn skin stood on the porch, hat in hand and eyes kind. "Well now," he said with a smile. "You're not Sam." "No," Hannah replied, her fingers tightening slightly on the doorframe. "I'm Hannah Morgan." "You must be Hank." The old man chuckled. "That'd be me. Where's Sam?" "He went to town," she explained. "Said you'd be coming back today." Hank studied her for a long moment, curiosity clear in his weathered features. "Can't say Sam mentioned having company." "It's a recent arrangement," Hannah said, choosing her words carefully. She offered a brief explanation of her situation, omitting the darkest parts. When she finished, Hank's lined face softened. "Well, Miss Morgan, Sam's a good man, one of the finest. You couldn't ask for better company." "I believe that," Hannah said sincerely. "Would you like some coffee? I just brewed a pot." "Don't mind if I do." They sat together at the table, Hannah pouring coffee and offering the leftover cornbread. Hank, clearly enjoying the company, began telling tales of the early days in the territory and how Sam had carved the double R out of nothing but raw land and determination. "Most folks figured he wouldn't last 6 months," Hank said with a chuckle. "But here we are, 4 years later. He built this place with his own 2 hands. He strikes me as capable," Hannah remarked. "Capable and stubborn," Hank said, his tone fond. "Since his brother moved to Colorado last year, it's been mighty quiet around here. Do him good to have someone else under this roof, even if it's just for a spell." Before Hannah could respond, the sound of hoofbeats announced Sam's return. He came through the door with an armful of parcels, his face lighting when he saw them sitting together. "Looks like you've met Hank," Sam said with a smile. "Miss Morgan's been keeping me entertained," Hank said, pushing to his feet. "But I'd best check on those horses before they forget what work looks like." When he left, Sam's eyes swept the room, noting the fresh flowers, the neatness, and the scent of stew filling the air. "You didn't have to do all this," he said quietly. "I wanted to," Hannah replied. "It's the least I can do after everything." Sam hung his hat on the wall. "I sent your telegram. The operator said it should reach San Francisco in a day or 2. "Thank you," she said. "Was there any trouble?" A shadow crossed his face. "Wallace was in town. Didn't say a word, but he watched me like a hawk." Guilt pricked Hannah. "I've brought danger to your door." Sam shook his head. "Wallace and I have never been friendly. Don't trouble yourself about him." But Hannah couldn't dismiss the unease. Even as they ate the meal she'd prepared, her thoughts tangled between fear for Sam and a growing awareness of him. His quiet strength, the way his eyes warmed when he smiled, the steadiness that made her feel safe for the first time in months. She couldn't afford these feelings, not when her plans led elsewhere. As night fell, they sat by the fire, the shadows deepening around them. "Tell me about your life before all this," Sam said softly. "Who was Hannah Morgan back east?" Hannah stared into the flames. "After my mother died when I was 12, I ran the household and helped my father with his medical practice. I organized his cases, mixed remedies, even assisted with patients when the nurse couldn't come." "You've got more than a little medical skill then." "Enough to manage common injuries and illnesses," she admitted. "That's worth more than gold out here," Sam said. "Nearest doctor's in Tucson, 2 days' ride." She hesitated, then asked, "And you? What brought you west?" For a long moment, the only sound was the crackle of the fire. Then Sam spoke, his voice low. "I was engaged once. Her name was Elizabeth. We had plans, a farm, a family. Then the influenza came. She was one of the first to go." His jaw tightened. "After that, I couldn't stay. My brother suggested a new start, so we came west, built this place together. Later he married and moved to Colorado. I stayed." "I'm sorry," Hannah whispered. Sam nodded, then looked at her. "What about you? Was there someone in Boston?" "A young doctor," she said with a sad smile. "But when father died and the debts came to light, his interest vanished." "Sounds like you're better off without him," Sam said bluntly. "Perhaps." At the time, it felt like one more loss in a season of losses. They lapsed into silence, the fire casting golden light over the room. When Sam finally rose to add a log, his voice was gentle. "It's late. You should rest." "Good night, Sam." "Good night, Hannah." That night, lying in the quiet darkness, she found herself wondering what it would mean to stay, to belong here, to belong with him. The thought should have frightened her. Instead, it warmed her like the fire still glowing in the hearth. Days blurred into a gentle rhythm. Hannah kept the house, tended the herb garden she discovered behind the kitchen, and brought it back to life. Then, one morning, Sam returned from town with a telegram in hand. "It came," he said, handing her the slip of paper. Her fingers trembled as she read, "Relieved you are safe. Stop. Regret to inform you relocating to Chicago. Stop. Cannot accommodate you at present. Stop." Hannah lowered the paper slowly. "She's moving. She can't take me in." Sam's face softened. "I'm sorry. I have nowhere to go," she murmured. "You have here," Sam said quietly. "Stay as long as you need." "I can't impose." "You're not imposing," he said firmly. "Hank says the place hasn't looked this good in years, and—" His gaze met hers. "I like having you here." Warmth spread through her chest. "I like being here," she admitted. "Then stay," he said simply, "at least until you know what you want." Later, as they sat after supper, Sam cleared his throat. "I've been thinking. There's no doctor closer than Tucson, and families are moving in every month. You know medicine. Folks out here need someone like you." Hannah blinked. "You're suggesting I become a healer?" "Why not? Start small. Set bones. Help deliver babies. Treat fevers. It'd give you income and independence." The idea startled her, and yet it stirred something hopeful. Would people accept it? "Out here, we care about skill, not society rules," Sam said with conviction. "Most women would rather see a lady than a grizzled old doctor anyhow." She thought of her father's practice, of the satisfaction that came with helping. "I'd need supplies." "We'll get them," Sam said. "Consider it an investment. Pay me back when you're on your feet." Hannah hesitated, then smiled, a real bright smile she hadn't felt in months. "All right, I'll do it." The next day they rode into Silver Creek to start planning. Word spread like wildfire, and by the time they inspected an empty office building for her future clinic, half the town seemed eager for her services. "It's perfect," Hannah said, stepping into the dusty space with eyes full of possibility. Sam grinned. "Then it's yours." She turned toward him, her gratitude shining. "Thank you, Sam, for everything." But before he could answer, the door swung open. Jeb Wallace filled the frame, his smile a blade. "Well, well," he drawled. "Look at this. The cowboy and his prize, playing house in my town." Sam stepped forward, voice like steel. "We're just leaving, Wallace, no trouble." Wallace's grin widened. "Trouble's my favorite game." Wallace tilted his head with feigned innocence, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "Just thought I'd extend a neighborly welcome to Silver Creek's newest resident." His eyes slid to Hannah like a blade, cold and calculating. "Though I've got to admit, Reed, if I'd known what was hiding under that sack, I might have opened my purse a little wider. Say $1,000, maybe more." Sam's jaw clenched, his tone low but edged with steel. "That's enough, Wallace." The mine owner smirked, savoring the tension. "Funny thing, though," he drawled, glancing around the small room. "I happen to own this building. Don't recall giving you permission to rent it." "Davis said it was available," Sam countered evenly. "We spoke to him this morning." Wallace's smile turned cruel. "Davis don't speak for me, and I've decided this place ain't up for rent, not to you anyway." Hannah stepped forward before Sam could stop her, lifting her chin. "Mr. Wallace, I intend to start a practice here, a place where families can find help when they're sick or injured. That benefits the whole town, including your men." His eyes narrowed, mocking disbelief flashing across his features. "A woman doctor? That'll be the day." "Not a doctor, a healer," Hannah replied firmly. "And yes, a woman. Who do you think tends mothers in labor or nurses children through fever? Women have been healers since the beginning of time." For a fleeting second, surprise flickered in Wallace's expression. Then his features hardened into granite. "Call it what you want, sweetheart. You're not setting up shop here. And if you've got any sense, you and Reed will ride out of Silver Creek before something unpleasant happens." Sam's voice dropped to a deadly calm. "Is that a threat?" Wallace showed yellowed teeth in a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Just friendly advice. Silver Creek's no place for folks who don't know where they belong. He tipped his hat in mock courtesy and strode out, leaving a trail of tension behind him. Silence hung in the air for a long moment before Sam exhaled sharply. "I should have seen this coming," he muttered. Hannah straightened her shoulders, fire in her green eyes. "If he thinks he can scare me off, he's wrong. We'll find another place, Sam. I won't let him dictate my life." A slow smile tugged at Sam's mouth, admiration softening his features. "You keep surprising me, Hannah Morgan." By nightfall, they had struck a deal with Mrs. Whitman, the stout silver-haired owner of the town's only hotel. A seasoned midwife herself, she welcomed the idea of a proper healer. "Been catching babies for 20 years, she told Hannah with a grin. "These hands ain't as steady as they used to be. Glad to have someone new I can trust." That evening, as they rode home under a sky streaked with crimson and gold, Hannah felt something stir deep inside her, a sense of purpose she hadn't known since before her father's death. The wilderness, harsh and untamed, was giving her a chance to start over. And beside her, silent but solid as the mountains, was the man who had made it possible. She risked a glance at Sam, silhouetted against the fading light, strong, steady, unshakable. He had given her more than safety. He had given her a future. The only question was whether that future might include him, not as an ally, but as something far more precious. The next few weeks swept by in a blur. Hannah transformed the small room off the hotel into a modest clinic. A curtain for privacy, shelves lined with remedies, a clean space for examinations. Word spread like prairie fire. At first it was miners' wives who came, timid and uncertain, but soon confidence grew. Children with coughs, women seeking help in childbirth, even rugged cowboys found their way to her door after hearing how she had set a broken arm and stitched a bullet wound with skill no one in town could match. Sam made the trip with her most days, riding in at dawn and returning at dusk, ever watchful despite Hannah's insistence that Wallace had vanished to Tucson on business. One cool October evening, as the horizon bled shades of orange and violet, Sam broke their comfortable silence. "Harvest Festival's next Saturday," he said, eyes on the trail ahead. "Whole town will be there. Music, food, dancing." Hannah smiled softly. "Sounds lovely." Sam hesitated, then turned toward her. "I'd like to take you, properly. Not just as a neighbor, Hannah. As the woman I'm courting, if you'll allow it." The words stole her breath. They had been circling their feelings for weeks, and now the truth hung between them like the first star in a darkening sky. "I'd like that very much, Sam," she whispered. His grin was slow and genuine, warming her more than the sun ever could. "Good, that's settled then." The night of the festival was alive with color and laughter. Lanterns glowed in the town square, music spilled from fiddles and banjos, and couples twirled beneath the autumn moon. Hannah wore a blue calico dress Mrs. Whitman had altered for her, and when Sam arrived, clean-shaven, vest pressed, dark hair neat, his appreciative gaze made her cheeks warm. They danced, they laughed, they tasted sweet pies and cider, and everywhere they went, people greeted Hannah as Doc Morgan. Even Davis introduced his very pregnant wife with pride, as if Hannah's presence in town was his doing. Later, under a sprawling cottonwood at the edge of the square, Sam's fingers lingered over hers from their last dance. "You belong here, Hannah," he said quietly. "These people need you. I need you." Before she could answer, shouting shattered the moment. A knot of drunken men spilled from the saloon, and at their center strode Jeb Wallace, meaner than a rattler and twice as dangerous. "Reed!" His voice cut through the music like a whip crack. "Still playing house with your auction prize, I see." Sam moved in front of Hannah, his stance like iron. "You're drunk. Go home." But Wallace only sneered, eyes blazing with malice. "Tell me, sweetheart," he slurred, fixing on Hannah. "Has he even touched you yet? Or is he too much of a coward to claim what he bought?" Gasps rippled through the crowd. Hannah felt the sting of humiliation but refused to shrink back. "Mr. Wallace," she said evenly, "go home before you make a bigger fool of yourself." His face twisted with rage. "Don't you tell me what to do. This is my town, my people. His hand dropped to the revolver on his hip. "And I take what's mine." Sam's voice was cold steel. "You don't own her. You don't own anyone. Put your hand away, Jeb." For one taut heartbeat, it seemed Wallace might relent. Then his fingers closed on the gun. What happened next was a blur. Metal flashed, a shot thundered, and Wallace stumbled, shock etched across his face as crimson bloomed on his shirt. Hannah was at his side in an instant, instincts taking over. "He's alive!" she snapped, pressing hard on the wound. "Get my bag, now!" Hours later, blood-smeared and exhausted, she stepped out of the clinic where she'd fought to keep him breathing. Sam stood waiting in the cold lamplight, guilt carved into every line of his face. "He'll live," Hannah said softly. The bullet missed anything vital. Relief flickered in his eyes, but the tension lingered. "I didn't want to kill him, Hannah. His voice broke. "I saw him reach for that gun and all I could think was, losing you." Hannah touched his hand, her heart twisting at the raw honesty in his voice. "You didn't lose me, Sam. You never will." His eyes searched hers, fierce with something more than gratitude. "I don't want to waste another day," he said hoarsely. "Marry me, Hannah. Be my wife." Her breath caught, but her answer was steady, certain. "Yes, Sam. Yes."